Morning, boys and girls. Today we're going to continue on with our traditional story practice, and we're going to look at adding direct speech into our traditional story. So you've got the lesson plan in front of you, and you've also got this sheet as well. So remember that direct speech is the exact words spoken. It is shown by quotation marks. And saying verbs show how characters speak. For example, announced, shouted, or whispered. Reread the text certainly and identify direct speech in the traditional story. So I want you to pause the video and go and reread certainly and try and look for some direct speech. Now answer this question. How does direct speech add to our knowledge of characters in a traditional story? Write a response to that. Off you go. Now, read the following sentences and then answer the questions. A crocodile said to a cat that he would take her on his back across the creek. The cat didn't believe him. Do these sentences sound interesting? Why or why not? List 2 ways you could make these sentences sound more interesting. Pause the video and answer those 2 questions.
Hi there. In this video, we're going to be looking at how to include direct speech in traditional stories to add details about the characters. Remember what we have learned about direct speech in this unit? We've learned that direct speech is the exact words spoken by characters and is indicated by the use of quotation marks. Direct speech is often followed or preceded by a saying verb that expresses how the words are spoken. For example, whispered, shouted, bellowed. It is more interesting to use a range of saying verbs rather than always using said or replied. Let's have a look at a crocodile and a cat. A crocodile said to a cat that he would take her on his back across the creek. The cat didn't believe him. Does this exchange between the crocodile and the cat grab your interest? Does this introduction provide any information about the characters? Well, no. We only know that it is a crocodile and a cat, but we don't know very much about them. How can we make it more interesting? Well, we could add direct speech, which will help us get to know the characters better. We could give the characters names. We could add some noun groups to describe the characters, and we could add some clauses about the characters and places. If we do these things, the text becomes more interesting to read. Let's have a think about that crocodile. We're going to call him the cunning old Mr. Croc. That word cunning means sneaky or sly. It's letting us know a lot more about Mr. Croc. He's cunning and he's old. We can add some direct speech. Now, why don't you let me carry you across the creek? I know you don't like to get your beautiful fur all wet. And he is going to inquire about or ask this. Let's put it together. Now, why don't you let me carry you across the creek? Inquired the cunning old Mr. Croc in his sweetest voice. I know you don't like to get your beautiful fur all wet. Oh, we're finding out a lot more about Mr. Croc by the direct speech and by the noun groups in his sweetest voice. Let's look at the cat now. We're going to call him Fluffy the cat. And Fluffy the cat asks, "Do you really expect me to believe you, Mr. Croc?" And then she goes on to say, "I would be very silly if I thought you would get me there safely. You would eat me as soon as we set off." She is a pretty smart cat, our Fluffy the cat. Can you see the direct speech that's been added? What saying verbs could we use in this section? We could use replied, said, inquired, asked. Now let's put it all together. Fluffy the cat replied, "Do you really expect me to believe you, Mr. Croc? I would be very silly if I thought you would get me there safely. You would eat me as soon as we set off." So what language features have been added to our original story? Our crocodile said to a cat he would take her on his back across the creek. The cat didn't believe him. Well, we have added some saying verbs such as asked and replied. There are noun groups like the cunning old Mr. Croc and Fluffy the cat to describe the characters a little more, and there's direct speech to give us more information about those characters. It's a lot more enjoyable to read now and a lot more interesting.
Yeah, the next part. Construct an interaction between characters with direct speech. It says complete sheet 10. So we'll go over to sheet 10, which is this one. And it says choose one of the following sentences. So out of those three, pick one. Then rewrite the interaction between the two characters and include direct speech. Make sure you add the following: quotation marks, character names, and language features such as saying verbs, noun groups, thinking verbs, adverbs. One thing that I will mention after marking all of your narratives is we need to try and include more noun groups into our work, okay? Try and make our writing a lot more descriptive. So I want you to give that a go. Writing an interaction and including all of those things. Off you go. Now, number 6, answer the following questions about the sentences you have written on sheet 10. List all the language features that you used. So that means noun groups, saying verbs, adverbs, adjectives. Okay? List them all there. Choose one of these language features and explain how it added interest or information to your direct speech sentences. If you need to, edit your sentences to include more language features. So if you found that you didn't have enough language features, get a red pen or a pencil and add some more in, using the caret top to add some more in, or you can cross out ones that you want to fix. That's basically it, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's English lesson, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.